Howdy folks, it is Scanner here. Sorry if I sound a bit different today. I am, I guess, a little poorly. I'm a little under the weather, but I wanted to get this video done because there's some other videos coming basically to the channel that will be pretty self-explanatory when you see them, but they're all about like other people's things. And I don't want to have nothing basically of my own thoughts essentially going on to the channel in any major capacity. So it's the Trench Crusade Mysteries, and we're going to talk about the Traitor Paladin, and less what I think the Traitor Paladin is up to, although there will be a little bit of that in there, and more about what I think the Traitor Paladin means. I like to talk about Trench Crusade on a large narrative level, like what I think is actually going on in the universe, what I think these small things say about the big things, and this is definitely going to be one of those. So in Trench Crusade, the Paladins are one of the most interesting aspects of the Fateful Forces because they're the perfect example of that thing that I obsess about all the time, the nexus between faith and science that the world has become. One of the main reasons why I like Trench Crusade is that it hints that within the world, what we think of as physics and chemistry and biology and mathematics, etc., they're all just the mechanisms by which creation occurred. They are the how, and God is essentially the why. So the tools of creation are right there for us. Existing in reality is akin to living in a house where, like, the walls are the walls, yes, but they are also the blueprint, and they are at one and the same time fully formed, and the materials that they were used to build them, and the forming of those materials, and all this stuff exists in potentia at the same moment. Basically, if you look really, really closely, you can almost see snippets of designer notes and building engineering scribbling in the margins of reality. That is how sciences are. That's what maths and chemistry and biology and all this stuff actually is. It's reverse engineering the efforts of God, the mechanics by which God created the world. We know that the tools of creation are the Sephiroth in Trench Crusade, and that these are in essence accessible to everyone. Simply walking the path of the beast, surviving that journey backwards through the labyrinth of creation, would bring one to the tools you need to become anything at all. While this is essentially impossible to do, it's not actually impossible to do, and that's the key thing. There is a key factor in the universe of Trench Crusade, and likely for a very specific reason. So Trench Crusade is establishing a world where the things within it seem bound by the rules and the laws of creation and existence, but from time to time, everything goes absolutely to shit, and you are left wondering if that is all happening for a reason. Maybe something makes it to the end of the labyrinth of creation not on its own merit or due to its own willpower, etc., but because it was secretly poked and prodded along the path by a powerful being that is forced to keep its plays secret. This type of thing happens all the time in Trench Crusade, sometimes openly, with lore like the demon Marbas helping the heretics design submarines, to more secret things like the disappearance of Argos or the sandstorms that have enveloped Mecca and Medina. This leads to some pretty big moments in the history of Trench Crusade that can be open for interpretation, and probably the best example of that is, of course, why we're here today, the Paladins and the Traitor Paladin. The Paladins are interesting because they so clearly draw influence from a number of things. The obvious connections between the number 12 and the 12 Apostles, early accounts of the Knights of the Round Table of Arthurian legend that featured the number 12, as in 12 Knights a lot, even though kind of later legends and myths that expanded up to like hundreds of them. The 12 Knights of Charlemagne, the 12 Knights of Gamorgan, etc., etc. Historically, the idea of like 12 dudes banding together to fight for something, and specifically someone, be that physically or spiritually, is something that repeats over and over and over again. even to the point of like modern movies like The Dirty Dozen. You know, it's this repeating cycle, this repeating story that we have decided that we liked. And don't look beyond the idea that the devs are doing very meta things sometimes in Trench Crusade. So obviously the most likely reference being made with the 12 Paladins, despite the naming convention embracing other famous 12s through myth and history, is the 12 Apostles. This is actually really important to a personal theory that I have for the world of Trench Crusade. What we know of the Paladins is that 2 of them are dead, 9 of them are still alive, and 1 of them is rumoured to have turned traitor. We don't know how true that is from a developer confirmation point of view. They love their unreliable narrator, but I firmly believe that it is true, that that is exactly the world state of Trench Crusade with regards to the Paladins. What we know kind of matters less than what we think we know, but that will make a lot of sense in a minute. I think that the reason that the Mendelus monks basically are unable to create another paladin, we know they're hard locked at 12, even though some of them are dead. We know they're hard locked at 12. And the reason why they can't do it is that the main resource that they need to do so has been tapped out, that they didn't even know that they were doing that, but they've kind of tapped into the 12 souls of the 12 apostles. And that's what they were drawing on when they were creating these. It was the perfect unison of the perfect specimen of a human, the best possible Jesus juice, and then on the big spinning wheel of what kind of divine energy are we going to land on when we're trying to make this thing, they happen to land on the 12 apostles, or at least one thereof. So this is where we get kind of crazy. Each of the 12 apostles, in my opinion, in the world of Trench Crusade, is bound to a degree of destiny. And the Mendelus monks, unsure of what they were doing when they were goofing around with their Jesus juice, just ended up tapping into them. And that's how they created the Paladins. The Paladins were, in essence, created by mistake during the communicant program. They did not go out of their way to create a Paladin. A Paladin is just something that happened. And you'll remember what I was saying about powerful entities with their fingers on the scale. I think this is one of those things. So let's go even further with it. When the original 12 apostles existed, the entire function of Judas during that first coming of Christ was to enact the betrayal of Jesus. It was vital that Jesus not just be betrayed, but know that he would be betrayed, and to endure the agony in the Garden of Gethsemane and still go ahead with the events that lead up to and include his crucifixion for our sins. With the inevitable betrayal hardwired into the very nature of Judas's existence, when they tapped Judas's soul to make the Paladin, unknowingly or knowingly, doesn't matter, the Traitor Paladin was always going to exist. That's the route that Paladin was on. Always going to happen, never not going to happen, absolutely had to happen, because that was the nature of Judas. That was the base nature of the essence of the soul that was used to create it. Now, this once again stems back to one of the biggest considerations around the philosophical nature and metaphysical nature of Trench Crusade that I talk about quite a bit, which is whether the universe of Trench Crusade is fatalistic or deterministic. This is definitely something that I do want to approach in a future video, and I know I keep bringing it up and mentioning it and then saying, look, we're going to deal with that later, but due to the possibility of that one breaking containment, which is to say finding a knowledgeable audience outside of the bounds of Trench Crusade fans, I really want to take my time putting that together, because the people who argue fatalism versus determinism, they don't fucking play, and you really got to have your shit together. So regardless, doesn't matter. The end result is actually the same. The Paladin formed from the essence of Judas would be destined to act as a betrayer. The bigger implication is that all of this somehow intertwines with the idea of the second coming of Christ. We have no way to know the intentions of God. The intentions of God in Trench Crusade are as unreadable and unknowable and unparsable to a human brain as the intentions of God would be in real life. But the entirety of human existence would be like one giant learning experience on a species level. If God decided that giving the angels instant access to heaven when he first created them was a mistake because they fucked it, right? Then humanity might need to kind of earn their way into it in some major way. Individuals can do it by living a good life and reaching the end and being contrite about any sins that they've committed and all that kind of stuff. But there may be some form of like spiritual evolutionary endpoint that people can get to as a species, and then just the entire species is elevated into heaven all the time. Earth and earthly possessions and earthly existence is left behind forever. So, I mean, you can call it a rapture. I don't want to call it a rapture because of the whole thing recently where people thought the rapture was going to happen. But, you know, essentially maybe. So God may have already shown them that path of salvation, and because humanity killed it, which is to say they killed Jesus, it's now up to them to figure out how to get Jesus back. The second coming this is an awkward line when I wrote it, but it's a little note I wrote. The second coming, it's a bringing, not ascending, if that makes sense. For Jesus to come back, the paladin must exist and be there to turn traitor in order to betray him. And for Jesus to come back, it is up to mankind to figure out how to bring him back. He's not being sent again. And the paladins are that first step towards bringing him back. Because here's more interesting stuff, I guess. Because we have no idea which paladin that might be, which one the betrayer is, there's no point in assuming that anyone in Trench Crusade knows who the betrayer is. The one that they suspect of being the traitor might just be a good guy who's like trapped in hell in some weird bolden existence, in some kind of odd prison type thing. And one that they think is loyal is actually a traitor, just like hanging around waiting for Jesus to come back. Now, obviously it's not our boy and Chase, who's like a total fucking baller, but it could be one of them. Like one of the paladins that we think is loyal could actually be a traitor, basically. I don't know if that makes any kind of sense, but that's where my brain is on these things. One of the more interesting theories I've seen out there with regards to the Traitor Paladin is that they're actually a double agent, that the Paladin isn't a traitor, but they're pretending to be to get in good with hell, so that they can get close enough to Lucifer or Satan to potentially kill one of them or both. Even. But behind all of this, I feel, even that the traitor, whatever is going on there, I do believe that God is pulling the strings of all this somehow, or if not him directly, then some form of pre-established system that he has in place to protect the nature of existence and the nature of this trial. All right, this is all part of the same thing. It's all supposed to be happening. This isn't an aberration from God's plan. This is exactly God's plan. And everything's going according to God's plan, even the traitor. In the same way that Judas was needed to bring Jesus onto the path, so is the Traitor Paladin needed to bring Jesus onto the path when he comes back again. But the specifics of his function might be different in that he is there to lead hell perhaps to some like maybe great defeat. Like that's his purpose in existence. That's why he turns traitor, because it gives hell this thing that they think they can all like rally behind. And you know, it'll really suck for the tyrant god's minions when we show up led by a paladin, but they're fated to lose that fucking fight maybe. Or potentially he has to turn traitor to act as a galvanizing agent for the rest of the paladins, like perhaps that was supposed to happen. With 12 paladins, and with them being built to take on the specific threats and dangers of the 9 circles, we don't know what the other 3 actually specialized in. We do know that there's still 9 left, and that they could very well be the 9 that are needed to cover each of the 9 circles, or that they're able to alter them somehow to cover it. I don't know. But we don't know what the other 3 would have actually specialized in. So ultimately, I feel this is all a backup plan by God. It's a way for him to get around the covenant without directly contravening it. He is not sending anything to Earth. Mankind is bringing things with sparks of divinity into existence. A similar mindset could also maybe, I don't know, be extended to the Taquan creatures of the Iron Sultanate to a degree. Not exactly the same thing, but to a degree. So all this stuff is just, as I said at the very start, it's God with his fingers on the scale a little bit. People are asking, like, where is God in all this? He's constantly poking and prodding, or he's got these pre-established systems in place, like fail-safes, almost, that kick in when certain things happen. And that the Traitor Paladin is actually one of those things. It's a piece on the board, as far as God is concerned, in the greater game of existence, but only God actually knows what the end result of that is. And even if the end result of that appears to be bad in the moment, in the same way that Judas betraying Jesus appeared to be bad in the moment, it's just that thing that has to happen. There's no way to avoid it. So God needs these things in play. He's poking and prodding at the brains of the Mendeless monks, maybe lamping little bits of inspiration off them. Not enough to upset anybody, not enough to show up on anybody's radar with regards to the Covenant, but just poking and prodding, constantly moving mankind's understanding of reality and creation and what can be done via the same tools that he actually created the whole thing in the first place with, which is essentially the sciences. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the Traitor Paladin. I think the Traitor Paladin is actually very directly and overtly a channeling of the traitorous apostle Judas, and he's definitely a traitor. I don't think he's a double agent or anything like that. I think he's 100% a traitor. I think he's off in hell right now, kicking back his heels, chilling his boots, getting ready to make what he perceives as his big play, where instead of guilt is an interesting thing, and a lot of people, instead of guilt making them question their behavior and try to live a better life, it actually just makes them fucking worse. And I think that the Judas spirit is like that it is now indelibly stained on a level where, you know, forgiveness can never be granted, and you're coming down to this like super fucking dope true good versus true evil, no redemptive arc possible on the other side of it thing. That would be like dope as shit to me. But yeah, there you go. That's my crazy, whacked out, stupid ass theory. Let me know your theories about the Traitor Paladin, I guess, but also what you think about the idea that God is like kind of poking and prodding and constantly moving mankind towards a thing, towards an event, towards a moment, that's what this is all about. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Like the video only if you actually liked the video. Remember to hit the little bell if you want the updates, and remember to curate your subscription feed or you're never going to see shit. So thank you all so much for watching.